So how do you know you have good genetics within 3 years? You didn't even try.
Yeah, but that goes down a whole another rabbit hole. Like I remember when I first started my team, I'm like, dude, I want to find some 18-year-old kid with great genetics.
Mm-hmm.
I found a couple. They sucked.
Mm-hmm.
Like they had no heart, they had no will. And I'm like, dude, find me a stubborn, mean, like aggressive kid. I don't care what his genetics are. But then it was the same thing there was a time where I thought I have in my phone I have all these top lifters, and I can sit around and I'm talking to them. I'm like, I'm going to write the greatest program of all time. I'm going to put all this information together, and all I found out was everyone trained different. And I'm like, well, okay, so what's the commonalities? And it was like all these top guys tend to listen to their bodies, and they all have horror stories. Mm-hmm. Like it's funny how many of the strongest people in the world got picked on as kids, mm-hmm. or got abused, or like mm-hmm. all these horror stories. And it's like, maybe genetics, like,
it matters. You can't say it doesn't matter. It definitely matters, but there's a lot more going into this than just that. You know, because you can take somebody with just horrible fucking genetics.
Well, yeah, they're never, but you can make them stronger, but they're never going to be like a world competitor.
No, but they can make it. They can qualify to the nationals. I think anybody can, unless there's just neurological damage. It's just impossible to be able to do that. They can at least qualify. They can get to that level if they have the determination, the mindset, and the ability to learn.
And that was always the funny thing to me about, especially with like, there's so many programs that were designed out of Eastern Bloc and stuff. And it's like, well, those programs were designed and those studies were done with the genetic freaks. Mm-hmm. Like they were picking little kids going, hey, you're going to be a gymnast, you're going to be this, you're going to be that. So how does that study relate to the average Joe dude who doesn't have those genetics?
Well, it does. And like, they still came in though, because they just got weeded out. You know, so it's a process of elimination.
Right.
It's just got a bigger funnel. But the other thing I've always said with the genetics is, especially in strength sports, is when genetics meet the right leverages is when you find out what's really possible.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Right. So that's a big factor too. The other one is it takes a long time for most people. There's always outliers to get strong. So how do you know you have good genetics within 3 years? You didn't even try.
That's true.
You know, I mean, a lot of the guys, women, you know, however you always, you know what I'm saying? I don't want to get bashed. It's the way I just talk. It takes a long time. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you look at the guys that are, just say the powerlifters competing today, they're doing very well. Maybe they've only been actively on the scene for 5 years, but look how long they've been training.
Yeah, how long have they been lifting?
It's 10, 15 years. It takes a long time.
How would you compare, say, athletic genetics to strength genetics? Do you think there's a link between the two? Like, if you have a guy who has great athletic genetics who may not end up being that strong, or vice versa, somebody like I worked hard to gain anything in sports, and I was okay. Like, I don't think I have great genetics as an athlete.
There's muscle fiber types. There's a lot of factors that kind of play into that, mm-hmm. but I would say it depends what. It's anecdotal from just what I've seen. It depends what sports they came through. They come through jiu-jitsu, MMA, wrestling, individual sports. Then I've seen the tendency for them to be able to excel higher in bodybuilding, strength sports, and stuff like that, because it's so individual. You're so with yourself. It's almost like a natural fit. Now, the wrestling, MMA, the fighting type crowd, there's a lot of work you need to work with them on work ethic, because they will fucking train for 8 hours straight.
Everybody's going work ethic with those, and they go,
no.
It's the other way. It's the brake pedal. It's the brake pedal.
They will run their ass into the ground, because that's what's worked before. The team sports gets a little tricky. The team sports, it's a different fit. I'm not saying it can't happen, because some of the best powerlifters came from football, mm-hmm. you know, as linemen. So the other thing with that team sport side is, if they're really good, then they're playing D1 football, or they're going to the NFL. So they're not going to be powerlifting, you know. So they're going to go where that is, and so it's hard to say. I would say the better the athletic background, even from the set of many sports at a young age, the better they're going to do in string sports to a degree. Just because they're going to be more coachable, they're going to know the work ethic, they're going to have the explosive ability, which matters, because it's developed very, very young. So if they miss that, then you can still keep their explosiveness. Maybe you can develop it some, but it's more about keeping it.
So now I got another question.
You came from a throwing background. It's an explosive sport.
Explosive as fuck.
So that carried over into that. Now, my question would be, if you didn't come from that throwing background, would that explosiveness still been there?
And when did you start?
I don't know, because like my dad was a carpenter, so like I went to one camp at Mizzou. They showed me plyometrics, and I went home and went, Dad, we got to build these boxes.
Yeah, but go younger.
And I was a working.
What age was that?
Man.
What age was that?
That was, I think, by the time I was a junior in high school, I was doing my own plyometrics.
What about a little younger?
I didn't start. I started lifting in like 8th grade. A little
not
bit
lifting,
with
No,
sports.
just like moving, like running, jumping.
I didn't do a
all that
team
shit.
sport till high school. I mean, we played. Back in those days, everybody. I mean, I played ice hockey with the kids in the neighborhood.
That's
we
what
played
we're getting at.
football. We played everything.
Yes, right. So that's what I'm saying, is the play aspect. When you're younger, what is it, right? Because the kids that are just sitting playing video games, they might have good visual acuity,
Right.
which may mean they might be a good quarterback or linebacker. I'm like, there's good things associated with that, not all bad.
Right.
But they're probably not going to be the most explosive athlete.
Right. Because they haven't trained their body to do that.
And you're talking about different just movement styles, movement planes. Like you're talking ice hockey, that's way different than just sprinting, than jumping.
Yeah.
Like you're working.
And we
all
literally,
the directions.
like, I lived on like, I think it was 3/4 of an acre, and my neighbor had an acre, and like my other neighbor had an acre, and like they didn't give a shit what we did. So like, I mean, we went from playing golf over the houses to playing like froth, to playing wiffle ball, and then cut and going, we can't throw a bad enough curve with this. Let's play with half a tennis ball. And then playing football, and then playing baseball, and then playing hockey. And like we were switching, like I guess we all had ADD or something. But you'd hit a sport hard for like 3 weeks, and you're like, all right, we got to find something else to do.
Well, I mean, that pretty much explains where a lot of that explosivity comes from. Just that variety of movement at that young of an age.
Yeah, so
You're
if you can
ingraining
dig
those
down,
patterns.
so to answer your question, if you can dig down and see what that multi-training component is at a young age, you can kind of see a little bit there, because genetics still play a role, but so does the development of certain skills during certain ages. And then you got to look at the mental part, where yes, you are right, where a lot of people that end up in the strength sports were the ones that were bullied and kicked around, and just like, fuck this, the refuse, resist, non-compliant, fuck you, this is who, that's definitely a role too, if you dig down into that as well, which isn't so much, the genetic thing, but both of those, that can help or hurt them. And it really, it really can. It can go, that can go two different ways. But, and that's not saying that that mental aspect, while I think it does become a driving force there, if they don't have that, I think they can develop it, as long as they're around, if they see it.
Right.
They can certainly develop it if they want to develop it. That's the question. So then the other question becomes, well, does this determine if they want to develop it or not?
Right.
I don't think so.
Well, here's another one I thought of one time, because I've always thought about like what makes a great lifter or even a great athlete. So when we talk about people having genetics, what are we really talking about? Like, is it that guy has, like, we all grew up and there was the one kid that could just throw hard as shit. And now that I know, I look back and go, well, that kid had good technique. Was his genetic gift that made him good, that he had great proprioception, he just knew how to throw, or was it that his muscles, he had more quick or fast twitch muscle fibers?
I think it's
or was
always
it
a few.
like, it seems like there's so many variables. How do you actually pin down what really you're talking about?
You can't, because there's going to be a lot of different ones. So say, I'll go way out into, let's say somebody who's in the string sports has a great ability to process, absorb, and utilize drugs. Right? So,
True.
We all knew the people that could just take a little bit of test and get strong as fuck. Right? So that obviously is not a learned trait.
Right.
that can only fall back onto being a genetic trait.
Right.
So you could say, well, yeah, that's one, because now they can get way more output out of something that other people have to put more thought into, or have to deal with more side effects and all that. And that's just, I'm going way out there,
Yeah.
right? But
Yeah.
so you can say that's certainly one. You can say the explosiveness is one, but that could also be counterbalanced by they can't strain.
Right.
So there's what that is, and the ability to learn, and to be coachable. So there's a lot of factors, but usually what I find is when you get to the higher level, you're going to see one or two. That's why that person is who they are, right? So some of the strongest lifters that we've all seen and known over the years, they're not super jacked, right? And some are,
Right.
but some aren't. Or so you can't say that being super jacked is one of those components, but it could be for that one person, but not for this person.
Right.
Because for this person, the component is probably just the ability to strain.
Yeah.
And all these can be trained to a certain degree. And some that we've seen through strength sports, it's 100%. No, it's a lot higher percent. I don't want to speak in absolutes. Mental. Because they rip them fucking selves apart.
Yeah.
And they're not overtraining, because you see what they're doing. Everything they're doing is intelligent, but they just rip the fucking shit out of themselves. There's only one way that happens.
Like in powerlifting, you're going to get hurt. If you're pushing it, you're going to get hurt. It's going to happen.
I'm talking there's a whole other level there, where there's just holy, just keep going. Like, Jesus, dude, you need to stop, know. But then they just find a way to keep. That's a genetic mental thing, kind of, so.
Well, it is. That's another division of, like, when you're talking about mental genetics.
Well,
genetics, or is it just a mental factor? Like, if somebody says I have physical genetics, I'm like, yeah. I don't know.
The reason I put
built
that
a lot
in
of
there,
it, but mentally, I think I have genetics mentally, because I just like heavy weight and scaring weight and like knowing that a weight could crush me, like that actually makes me excited.
Yeah. Well, the reason I put that in there is because, I've known several people that would just have a pec strain, not even a pec tear that needs surgery, but just a pec strain, bad strain, and they're done.
Oh, yeah.
Now, I can't say that's good or bad. That's their decision to be able to make that. But that person's way different than this person that's like, fuck it, I'm going. They keep going. Who's right, who's wrong?
Yeah.
But all I'm saying is that person there that's got that ability to just say, fuck it, keep going, they're going to make it to a higher level.
Yeah.
Right? But this person here may have got hurt here. So and this is what I've seen more, they get up there, then bam, that first injury, then they're gone.
Done, yeah.
Right? And that's okay, because they still actually end up being higher than the person that tore the shit out of themselves. So at the end of the day, when they're both 60 looking back, this guy say, I only did it for 3 years, but I still beat you.
Yeah.
Where the other guy is like, well, fuck you, I did it for 15 years.
Right.
Well, who cares? I still beat you by a lot.
And in the end, that's all that matters.
Well, I know in the end what matters is what are you satisfied with? I mean, that's the biggest takeaway is when you walk away, what are you okay with?